All right, good afternoon, folks, and welcome. We're giving folks just a few seconds to join us in from the waiting room, and then we'll get our conversation started around overcoming imposter syndrome. Just going to give folks a few more seconds here. All right, friends, we're going to go ahead and get the conversation started. First and foremost, welcome everyone. We appreciate you joining us today. Always curious as to where you're joining us from. If you are open to sharing where you're from, what city you're in today, please produce some chat traction at this point in time. In the meantime, let me offer you a brief introduction. My name is Juan Camacho. My pronouns are he and his. And I am a member of the Campus Talent Acquisition Team, part of our diversity recruiting initiative. So excited to be here with you and our panelists today to moderate a very important session around overcoming imposter syndrome. So this is a very important topic, one that truly is near and dear to my heart, as well as the heart, I know, of our panelists. And so we look forward to giving you a perspective today on overcoming imposter syndrome. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started with a few of these introductions of our panelists today. I will be calling on them name by name, and we'll ask them to give a little brief introduction inclusive of names, pronouns, PepsiCo job title and work location, number of years at PepsiCo, and perhaps the favorite PepsiCo product, which by the way, for me is hot Cheetos. So if we have hot Cheetos fans in the audience today, I would love to hear some noise as well. From that, I'm also going to ask our folks after their brief intros to share a little bit about how they started their career, right? Their PEP journey after they graduated from college or perhaps after that, and when they realized that they wanted to work in their respective fields. So with that, I'm going to first call on Maliha to give a brief introduction and her background and story. So Maliha, over to you.
Hi, thanks Juan, and good afternoon and happy Monday, everybody. Super excited to be here with you. My name is Maliha Siddiqui, and I am the General Manager and Sales Director of Pepsi Beverages North America here in the West Division. I'm based out of Buena Park, California, and so I oversee the sales and operations of this location, Buena Park, California, which is the largest location in the LA market. And I am so excited to be here with you. I've been with Pepsi for a short amount of time, actually, just a little under a year, but I have been in the sales industry for consumer goods for 15 years. So I'm coming in with an external perspective. I'll tell you my favorite Pepsi product is Kavita, actually. It's just a very refreshing beverage. I like the ginger lime flavor in particular. And I just want to say, I commend you, I applaud you, and I am so proud of you for taking the initiative to be here to hear about this very important topic of overcoming imposter syndrome, because by taking this step, you're acknowledging that it is a thing, it is real, and I have had some very personal experiences in dealing with it, and I still deal with it, and I'm super excited to share some of my learnings on this topic with you.
Perfect. Thank you, Maliha, for that introduction. I'll go ahead and pass it right over to Genevieve for the next introduction.
Hi, everybody. I'm Genevieve Asensio. My pronouns are she, her. I am the Senior Director of Global Food Service here at PepsiCo, newly minted Senior Director. I've been in the role for about 5 months, but I've been at, thank you, Tiana. I've been at PepsiCo for 3 years, but I've been in the PR function for 19 years now. And my favorite PepsiCo product is Baja Blast. If you haven't tried it, it's a must. You can get it at Taco Bell, and it is absolutely my favorite.
I can vouch for that. That is 100% correct. Genevieve, appreciate you in the brief introduction. Let's quickly pass it over to Terrence next.
Hey everyone, Terrence Patterson here. My pronouns are he and him. I am Senior Director, it's gonna say finance. I'm actually just sitting in a finance function now. I'm actually over order management on our PepsiCo Global Template Project, which is our SAP implementation. So I've been with PepsiCo Frito-Lay probably 14 years now, a little over 14 years. Have previous experience in a previous CPG company, so wealth of knowledge. Generally, my career path has been in technology. I haven't been in IT, but doing IT work, but I sit within the business. So kind of a liaison between IT and the business. And most recently, I think the term is like business innovation. So happy to see everyone here. My favorite food is probably the cheddar popcorn, smart food. Love popcorn, love the cheddar flavor. Just don't like trying to get the kernels out of my teeth after I get done eating it. But great to see everyone and can't wait for the discussions and conversations.
I hear you on the kernels on the teeth, Terrence, absolutely, but the popcorn is good. I am with you, sir. All right, last but certainly not least, Tiana, over to you.
Hey, everybody, Tiana Cunningham, pronouns she, her. You all are making me hungry. I need some snacks. I'm like, what is in my pantry right now that I can discreetly eat on this call? I'm not sure, but if you see me reaching for something, you know I have found a goodie. I am currently a marketing brand director on Stacy's Pita Chips. So in terms of my favorite product, you best believe I support my business. So Stacy's Pita Chips it is. Go and get yourself some. My favorite are the pita thins. They're light and they're flaky and they're crispy and oh so delicious. So I work on that business now. My whole background is actually nonprofit. So I'm a career switcher, decided that I had a great opportunity to scale my impact and I wanted to figure out what that looked like, how to do that. And so I ended up going back to school. And I eventually made my way here. How did I end up in marketing? I mean, real talk, I asked the folks at my school what they thought I'd be good at as a specialization for my MBA, and they said marketing or HR. Looked at that resume, I said I could do something with this marketing bit, and here I am. Been in the organization now for over 7 years, all the time in marketing, mostly out of the Plano office, so just north of Dallas, with a short stint overseas in Dubai. So just real cool experiences, excited to be here and appreciate you all for having me.
Appreciate you, Tiana. Thank you for that. And I only know you have some Stacy's Pita Chips hiding in the background somewhere. So
I stay eating them one. You would think that I'd have a little stash, but I even get that sharing size bag and that thing just goes, it goes too quickly. And so no, I don't. No, I don't, sir.
Fair deal. Completely understand that, right? Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for your brief introductions. And friends, really to make this the best call here, we really do want this to be a bit more of a dialogue too, right? We have our folks here that are going to answer a couple of predetermined questions, but should folks in the audience have some questions, please do either drop them in the chat, use the Zoom raise your hand feature, and we will call on you to ask your question live. So please feel empowered to do so. Please regard this as a safe space as well. We want to come into this with our authentic selves, but also feel free to bring your authentic self as well. The only ask we do have is while our panelists are speaking, just please watch that mute button so that we can hear our panelists all the way. So with that, let's continue on with our conversation, friends. And first, I think it's important to us to level set what imposter syndrome is, right? And sure, there's different context on what it is, but just to give you one definition of it, it is where someone may doubt their skills, talents, or accomplishments, and as a result, has a persistent internalized fear of being exposed as a quote-unquote fraud, even when or though they're doing a good job. Some common thoughts people may have when they're experiencing imposter syndrome include, but are not limited to, I feel like a fake, I just got lucky, and success is no big deal. Anyone could have done it. And personally, I can tell you that I definitely have had imposter syndrome in my entire career and arguably still work with it as well today. Certainly in a better place due to a lot of great perspective, but still working through it as well. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and ask our panelists, starting with Tiana. We'll stick it with you here, Tiana. Please share a time where you experienced imposter syndrome and you thought it was in relation to, say, your identity, for example, gender, racial, ethnic, etc., or your personal background. How did you resolve or overcome it? And what did you learn from that experience?
Yeah, so I'll mention one in regards to my background, and I kind of teed this up a little bit. I'm a nonprofit kid. I know how to love on people, strengthen the community, drive a ton of progress and a ton of growth. And when I went back to school and then showed up at a career fair to come and intern with the corporation, oof, did I feel it. Showed up for my internship day one with Frito-Lay, and as gracious and kind as they were, I started to look at the folks around me and just thought, I have no business being in this place. Surely they have made a mistake. Is this what a diversity hire looks like? And just questioned everything. I thought that I wasn't capable enough, smart enough. Didn't come from the right school, didn't come from the right function or background, and just was going to struggle. And I mean, it felt very real, right? I think it's hard to convince somebody that feels that way that that's not a true or accurate depiction of their story. And so I walk into this building and this big company with all these folks that I just feel are uber intelligent, and definitely felt that coming into my internship experience. The good news is that I learned and I worked hard. So how do you overcome that, right? You have to step outside of that mindset for a bit and not allow that kind of negativity to drive you towards being a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so that's one piece of it. But then I learned and got better at my job was another piece of it, right? So I developed better capabilities and I developed better skills in the areas that I was lacking. But another thing that I'd say has been most critical for me to understand, not only in this particular experience, but in everyone after that, was that I possess unique gifts, skills, talents, abilities, experience, and backgrounds that not a single person that came into that internship class could say that they had my unique combination. And I tell you, when I started to figure that part out, nobody else had Tracy and Clyde Cunningham as parents. Nobody else had gone to Pepperdine. Nobody else had this amazing nonprofit background and was serving the communities in the Valley, north of LA. Shout out, stand up LA. Nobody else had this unique combination. And I started to realize that it was my love for community and people that let me actually push through the marketing BS that can exist out in that world and figure out how to truly connect with consumers. And so from that point on, it was my imperative to say, I'm getting to the heart of people. I'm getting to the heart of what we're trying to do from a human standpoint. And that's going to actually be my superpower and not my weakness as I go into this. So that's what it's become then. And that's what it continues to be now. And I champion that perspective versus feeling inadequate.
Love every piece of that, Tiana, and having your authenticity be that superpower instead. That's an awesome narrative, and hope that is one truly that everyone can over time carry with them. So really appreciate you sharing that. Let me go right with that same question over to Terrence. Same question to you, my friend.
Yeah, I think for me, probably every role that I have imposter syndrome, because you learn, you get comfortable with what you're doing, you get confident, then you go to a new role and it's something totally different. But for me too, it was coming out of an HBCU where you don't see a lot of HBCU grads where you are, being, an African-American male. So when you go into organizations and you're looking across your organization, up your organization, you don't see a lot of people that look like you. So now you're coming from a historically Black university, you're one of few people that look like you, and you always have this stigma of, do I have to perform better than everybody else? So you start to question your work of, am I here for a diversity hire? Am I here to meet a quota? I'm confident with what I do, but I'm not sure it's being perceived and taken as being quality of work. So kind of what Tiana said is, as you start to grow and learn, you develop skills, you start to understand, like, maybe I can do this, and maybe I don't need to have all the answers, but I'm confident with what I do. And what I've learned over the years is, as each role I go to, I got put in this role, or I got hired into this role for a specific skill set. And over the years, I've learned to embrace that. Yeah, I'm not an IT person. I'm not a true business person and, in the field, Frito-Lay talk in the field, but I can bridge the gap between both of those organizations and both of those functions. So it does give me a unique outlook and a unique skill set that I can embrace and harness. Um, it doesn't make it easy, especially I think all of us could probably talk to is, you do great work, you get great ratings, then it's time for a promotion, you get passed up for a promotion, then that imposter syndrome sets in again. Am I good enough? Why did I not get promoted? Was my work not quality enough? But to help me with that is starting to really get out of my comfort zone and reaching out to mentors, understanding and navigating this corporate dynamic and the corporate landscape of understanding that everything is not always for you at that time, but be truthful and confident and with what you're doing. What I found is as I got better with that, each role that I left for something better. But when your old organization is calling you to fill in gaps for that person that came in behind you, or they value your work so much, they either don't want to let you go, or they're still asking you questions like, hey, you understand this, can you help us get through this? That starts to breed a lot more confidence too. I really did leave a mark. Like while you're going through it, you can't really see it, but when you come out on the other end, when you look back, you're like, man, I did some great work. I left a trail, I left an impression on people. Like now, I'm a director, been in this role for about a year, and I'm listening to directors that's been in this role for a while, and some of the things that they know about managing organizations, leading people, which I thought I did a great job. I know I still have a lot to learn. So I look at the history, knowing that I'm here for a reason, and it's not always imposter syndrome. Sometimes it's just getting over yourself and saying, hey, I'm gonna learn and I'm gonna get this done regardless. I'm smart enough, I'm capable enough, and I'm here for a reason.
Terrence, 100%. Appreciate you, sir, for that great perspective there too. Let's keep it going, my friends. Same question. I'm going to pass it over to Genevieve, immediately followed by Maliha. So Genevieve, first over to you.
We've been on Zoom for how long, and I still can't remember to unmute myself. But at the risk of echoing what Tiana said, as a Black woman in this organization, in any organization, it hasn't just been the experience that I've had here at PepsiCo, but in other roles as well. I often will ask myself if I've been invited to a meeting or to a task force or to a new business pitch because I am meant to represent a subset of the population and because they need to show diversity. And the truth of the matter is, I won't always know the truth. And the reality is I'm in the seat, and that's what I want. I want to be in the seat, and that's my opportunity to showcase my skills, bring my value to the table. So it's not my job to play detective and figure out if I'm a diversity hire. It's my job to control my mindset and to practice fighting imposter syndrome. So if you want an example of the last time I experienced imposter syndrome, it was right before I signed on to this call. Because as I'm looking through, and of course, I went through all of my colleagues' profiles, Terrence, Maliha, Tiana, and I'm like, oh my God, these people seem so awesome. Like, why did I volunteer for this again? What do I know about imposter syndrome? I deal with it every day. Why am I even here? What am I going to tell these people? And I had to practice exactly what we're going to talk about, because imposter syndrome is a feeling. And for a lot of us, the feeling doesn't go away just because you say, well, I'm not going to experience imposter syndrome anymore. So you have to find the things that work for you. So thoughts become feelings. So that thought in your mind, the thoughts that you're having about not being good enough or being invited to the table because you're a woman or because a male voice is needed or a Black voice is needed, that's a voice. And the voice is you. I keep saying, oh, my inner voice. No, I keep telling myself that I'm not good enough. Or my phrase is, oh, I went in there and I gave them the jazz hands and I made it through the meeting, but I wasn't really prepared. But the truth of the matter is I really was prepared. So reframing the things that I say to myself in order to move forward, and instead of saying jazz hands, hey, I took 19 years of experience and I worked that into the meeting to answer questions that I wasn't necessary, that I didn't prepare for, and I did so beautifully. So if you can tell yourself a different story and reframe, I think it gets easier, but it's not something that I can say, hey, I tackled imposter syndrome and I don't feel it anymore. I feel it every single day. And I think that is a big part of, the vulnerability of admitting that, and admitting that to people who report to you directly, who are not as senior as you, or even are more senior than you. That conversation, I think, demystifies it and it disempowers the feeling for me. So admitting that to you guys helps me go, you know what, I'm in a safe space, like Juan said, and I'm in a place where I can discuss how I truly feel and the tools that I use to get past.
Yeah, I would completely agree with everything that Tiana and Genevieve and Terrence have said. Imposter syndrome is a part of my very core existence. I live with it every day. It doesn't just show up at work, it shows up at home. I'm constantly questioning myself. Am I a good mother to my 3 boys? Am I a good daughter to my aging parents? Am I a fair, just, inspiring leader to my team at work? Am I giving them what they need from me? Am I good enough? And in order to understand how to handle it, I think you have to understand, and I personally had to understand, where did it come from? And for me personally, it was deep rooted in my childhood. I grew up in a country where until recently, women were not even allowed to drive. I grew up in Saudi Arabia. They are just now allowing women to drive. So I grew up in an environment where I never saw female leaders around me. Women relied on men to have their most basic personal needs to be driven around met, right? So I grew up believing that I would never be a leader because that's what I saw around me. And it became a mission of mine that I would challenge that and prove it to be not the case, right? And while I did that, and I grew my career in the corporate world, I did so while constantly getting this voice in the back of my mind of, can you do it? Are you good enough? What if you fail? What if you fall flat on your face, right? And for me, I learned that I had to manage that voice. And the way that I managed that voice was a few tools. The first was separate those feelings from the facts. And so while I felt overwhelmed and I felt insecure and afraid, when I looked at the facts of what I had accomplished and I celebrated those accomplishments, it brought the confidence in me. So the most recent example is when I was offered this job, right? And I made the jump from senior manager to an executive level. And the first question, my boss gave me the offer, and my first question to him was, Derek, can I do it? Can you imagine that, saying that to your boss? I actually said, do you think I can do it? And this was recently, right? Fast forward, now I'm in the role and a few months in, and I'm learning the job. And I asked my direct reports, you guys, do you think I'm cut out for this? I actually asked them that. And then I was like, whoa, reel yourself back, separate the feelings from the facts. All right, I've put in place really good infrastructure to get my team the information that they need to help drive the top line in the business, to help cut back our operating expenses. And I've cut them back, right? So I have to almost remind myself of the results that I have driven in order to manage that imposter syndrome. So that would be, my biggest advice and how I've been managing it when I deal with it. Separate those feelings from the facts.
Hey, don't worry. When I accepted my role, I asked my boss the same thing. I said, you sure you meant to call me and not anybody else?
It's real.
It's real, absolutely real. And I think that all of these perspectives as a whole are what I hope everyone is soaking in and understanding, that regardless of where you're at, early professional, mid-level, executive ranks, this feeling carries with you And it is a bit of a constant challenge, but also important to have that reminder that you really are enough. And if I can add my 2 cents, or what in Spanish I would call my dos pesos, it is something that you definitely feel. For an example, when you think about the immigrant imposter syndrome, myself being a first generation immigrant, coming in and not understanding the system, right? What it means to be an ideal, quote unquote, candidate for a job, how to really identify a major that makes the most sense for you, not understanding that, and to no fault of their own, of course, my parents not understanding that system as well, right? And so through my experience as well, going into college in my early professional days, I didn't understand it and felt that that was an example of where I didn't belong, because I feel like that was in a strange way holding me back from my potential, or could I really offer the most for a particular company or team, not having the quote unquote ideal background. Fast forward now, and this takes time, but changing the narrative in my head of saying, actually, my immigrant story is my strength. My immigrant story is the reason why I've developed grit, resilience, and identification of the right role that has a passion, or that I have a passion in. It's all because of that story. Bilingualism comes from the immigrant story, which is a strength, right? So for all of you out there who may also feel that same sort of immigrant imposter syndrome, know that it is a process, but when you can change that mental narrative to have it be a strength, you're in a fantastic place and you will get there. So with that, let us move forward with this awesome conversation. And friends, I will continue to monitor the chat, the Zoom raise your hand feature. Again, we will welcome your questions, right? We want this to be a dialogue. We want to hear from you and answer any burning questions that you may have in this safe space. But I'll go ahead for now and move forward here and ask this next question, starting with Genevieve. So Genevieve, the next question is that it's important for everyone to not underestimate themselves and to recognize how important you, your presence, skills, knowledge, and contributions are. What do you do or say when you're feeling imposter syndrome kick up while in the workplace, or before, say, a big meeting or a presentation, and so forth and so on?
Yeah, and I think, Maliha, you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but reminding myself of my accomplishments. Sometimes we work so quickly at PepsiCo, like things happen so fast. I've been in this new role for 5 months, but I feel like the achievement and the programs that I've worked on it could probably fill an entire calendar year. So keeping a little notebook or even a page in the back of your notebook to write down little wins, moments where you felt like you were on top of the world, like, wow, I did that. So keeping a little journal of your achievements that you can go back to when you feel like I haven't done anything, I'm not contributing, or I'm not enough. So I keep a little page in the back of my book. And then I have my team of cheerleaders. I know my friends who give awesome pep talks, who I can call and be super vulnerable with and say, listen, I've got a huge presentation and I'm feeling like my brain is empty. Like, has anyone ever experienced that? Like, you prepared, you're ready, you've been on the business forever, and then, 30 minutes before, you're like, nothing's in there. I don't think anything's going to come out when the meeting starts. And I have my bench of friends that I can call and say, help me out here, pour into me, talk to me, let me practice on you, let me get the jitters out. Because at the end of the day, each time I felt like that, I have to remind myself that I've gotten past it, I've gotten beyond it, and it's a feeling in the moment. And like you said, Maliha, it's not a fact, it's a feeling. But mostly, I think practicing every day and managing that voice will help you in those key moments, because not every moment is going to feel as intense as every other moment. So just like when you go to the gym or you practice yoga, you have to strengthen that muscle and be able to quiet that voice. Because if you're going to impersonate someone, I'm impersonating somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. Okay, well then impersonate someone who does know what they're doing. So if we're going to be impersonate somebody else. Choose to impersonate somebody else. Be active in the choice that you're making and in the thoughts that you're having. Those are the things that I do that work for me the most, is having a support system, reminding myself with my list, and being very careful about what words are what track is playing in my head.
Love that, Genevieve. Appreciate those perspectives, of course. And Tiana, let me come to you now with that same question as well.
Yeah, That's a fantastic question. I think my perspective is that it's in the micro moments of life that prepare you for kind of these macro moments. And so my point of view, and I think I faced a lot of imposter syndrome earlier in my career, and I don't face it near as much today. And I think it's trying to be intentional in the micro moments so that when I'm set up for new experiences or new opportunities, then it at this point doesn't phase me the same way, right? And so I think a couple things that have helped me along the way. So I'm going to kind of approach this one, if that's okay, just slightly differently from the reaction piece of it, but this is more of a proactive piece. So the ways that have helped me proactively, number one, being humble. Knowing what I don't know, knowing that I'll never know everything, knowing that there's always going to be somebody that knows more than me or that can do more than me or can do differently than me or whatever, like having a sense of humility that I'm constantly on a journey of learning. That's life, it's exploration, it's discovery, it's all these things. And that my path isn't just always a linear one, but it's one that moves me in different directions. And so kind of having the humility to walk through life, knowing that I'm always going to have something to learn has been super helpful. But with that in mind, another piece of it is being hungry. Like I crave growth and learning, right? And so it's not humble to the point of saying, well, here I am, I'm going to sit back and just not know, I'm going to sit back and not feel capable or not feel strong in this area. But, oh, if there is one thing you should know about me, it is that I love me some growth. I love me some learning. I am a nerd. I want to keep it that way. I want to let people know that that's who I am and that's what I'm about. So then I walk into situations where I'm not as critical of myself on what I know, but I show an optimism and enthusiasm to go after what I don't know, right? And overcome any shortfalls there. I'd say a third one is just awareness. Self-awareness is it. Self-awareness in my mind is kind of the key that unlocks that door of insecurity. Like when you have a level of awareness, then you're not constantly trying to compare yourself to someone else. It's about here's what I understand about myself and the best of what I have to give and the things that I still want to continue to learn. And so having that self-awareness has helped me walk into situations I don't have any business feeling as comfortable walking into because I can tell you, here's what I'm going to bring to the table. I don't have to have you validate what it is that I'm going to bring to the table like I used to. Now I'm telling you, here's what I have to offer. And here's where you're going to get the best of me. And if you want 100% of the best of Tiana and that works for you, fantastic. But if not my monkey, not my circus, not my business. I'm okay with that because I'll go into places and spaces that I can add that. And so I think that last point then that I'd make is about being content. And there is a peace and a contentment of life when you are able to say to yourself, I understand who I am. I understand my purpose. I understand what I bring. I'm going to be hungry for more. I'm going to be humble and recognize my place in this big, vast world. And that's okay. Like, that's okay. It is okay. I'm not going to always do everything that's on my list, of life aspirations. I won't complete every bucket list. I'm not going to fill up every whatever it is, right? But there is a contentment of just being okay with who you are and what your purpose in life is and living in that purpose in and outside of the job. And that's good enough for you and good enough for me. And I think that's been just an extraordinary series of just proactive steps in the micro moments that have really, really strengthened my resolve when I get to the macro moment to where I don't face that same type of thinking in that same way. And if I do, it feels unnatural, right? It feels foreign. It's like, oh, get this out of here because this is not who I am. This is not how I show up.
Couldn't agree more, Tiana. And I hope everybody in the audience is soaking up this real talk because that's exactly what it is, my friend. So with that same question, loving the perspectives, we're going to go with Maliha, followed immediately by Terrence.
I've had to kind of rewrite my mental program. I was programmed to believe, that if you're going to do it, just be perfect at it. If you're going to break the barriers, do it the right way, be perfect, right? For me at a very young age, female advancement in the corporate world was a big barrier, right? I didn't grow up seeing that. And so I was embedded in, I have to do this, it's a challenge, I will come out of this strong, and I'm a perfectionist. And if you read into imposter syndrome, perfectionists are usually the ones who suffer from it the most because they hold themselves to such a high standard that they are then afraid of failing because failure means something bad. And that's what I had to reprogram. I had to reprogram failure equals bad to failure equals learning opportunity, which is sort of what Tiana was just talking about. It's that humility, it's that humbleness, that it is okay to fail, and there will be times where I will fail, and I have failed. But I came out of those failures learning, and they made me a better leader. They made me a better wife. They made me a better mother. And so I take pride in those learning moments. So that was probably the biggest, most fundamental thing in how I manage imposter syndrome, is rewriting this mental program. I think the second one is surrounding myself with my fiercest, loudest cheerleaders / advocates, to be that voice when my voice is questioning my own self, right? And there's been multiple mentors and cheerleaders that I have turned to, who know me well professionally, to understand my work, how I approach things, and can give me that very transparent, real, radically candid advice that I value, right? And so I've lent on, I've seeked support from those mentors and cheerleaders through my entire career. Many of whom aren't even at Pepsi, they're at other companies, and I regularly reach out and just check in on what I'm working on, what their thoughts are. And it's perspective that really helps me. And it's a voice that really grounds me on, yeah, I've got this right. I'm thinking about this right. And then the other thing that I do a lot is give myself grace, be kind to myself, right? Genevieve talked about writing down the wins. I put certificates all over my office as a reminder. I put my children's thank you notes and you're the best mom cards on the fridge as constant reminders. I'm a visual person, to tell me, hey, I'm doing something right. I really am. I'm doing this right. I'm thinking about it right. I'm living my life the best that I can. I'm doing justice to the people that are in my life, and I'm killing it, right? Like, you almost have to tell yourself that you are crushing this. I say it, I'm crushing it, right? And it's those simple things. It sounds so trivial and simple, but it's amazing the impact that it makes on how I show up at home and at work. So I think those are some sort of examples. I would also say, visualizing your success. So kind of seeing what it means to be successful. I look at my team right now, extremely happy with where they are in their careers. I look at how I've developed the careers of so many people in my organization, and I visualize how they started, how I coached them, how I developed them, and what I took them to. And that gives me the most reward and recognition and feeling of achievement, is when I see the impact that I've made on my people. And so I do visualize that, like, here's the results that I drove, whether it was on the business or the people, and that helps boost up the confidence as well.
All right, so I'll jump in. Some of the things for me is one of the things I learned about is practice. When you become a professional and you got a little arrogance about you, even though you may have imposter syndrome, it's like, I know how to do this, or, I've done this before, or I'm just gonna wing it. I'm not gonna, worry about it. I'll do it, whether it's procrastination or last minute. But what I have learned is practice makes perfect. And also the practice helps you fail fast and get up quick. Even for, this session, we had a little, write up of things to expect, certain type of questions that's going to come out of this. And probably like some of you, I sat up last night kind of going through them. How should I answer this? Should I, what's the right answer? What's the right vocabulary to use? What examples should I use? Even earlier today, I was like, let me, go through this prep again. Early in my career, I didn't do a lot of prep. I was like, I can figure it out. It's not that important. But practice, practice, practice. And one of the things you think about it, professional athletes or anybody that's at the elite level, the one thing they say, it's not just about the game day. It's about the preparation. It's about the practice. It's about putting in the work. And a lot of people don't see that work. So it may be, checking emails late at night or spending the extra hour or two, at work or getting up early is you don't see outside of, we're on Zoom right now, outside of these Zoom calls, you don't see all the preparation and work that successful people are putting in. And that goes, that's really underestimated. So it kind of helps the more you practice, the more comfort you get. So when it's game time, you're ready. And even at game time, if you don't have butterflies and feel a little nervous, something's wrong. Either you're overconfident or maybe you haven't practiced and put in enough work to feel like, hey, is this really going to happen? If I have to do a big presentation, I may put on some music like you see athletes, and I'm trying to get myself hyped. I'm giving myself a pep talk. I got this. Take a deep breath. I've done this before. It's my peers. I know the content. So that the other thing I found later in my career is authenticity. One of the things as I was coming up through my career is I looked at people that were quote unquote successful in the company and trying to pattern either my presentation style after them, the way that you talk and you stand, or if it's a happy hour at work or some type of social event, how you go around and network with different people. That creates a lot of stress because it's not you. We hire people in the company. When we talk about diversity, it's not just diversity from culture, your background, race, color, ethnicity, all of that, but it's also really diversity of thought, that diversity of perspective. And I didn't get that concept until a long time of why am I trying to pattern myself after somebody else? I was born by myself. I have my own birth certificate, and why can't my perceptions, my opinions be what is driving the organization or this company forward? So once I stopped getting out of trying to be like somebody else and practicing and really understanding who I am, what I bring to the table, and being comfortable with, you may hear a saying of bring yourself to work. A lot of people say, no, you really can't bring yourself to work. You can. Now, we don't need the weekend person at work all the time, but it is bringing yourself to work. I found at one time in my career, I wasn't really enjoying it because I was being so stringent and being so quote professional and being so straight laced and trying to be so stern and upright. I stopped enjoying it. I stopped laughing. I stopped joking with my team. And so now, I mean, it could be with my senior director, sometimes VPs. I may throw in a little joke. That's just me, but I can't change who I am. Once I change who I am, that means the company is no longer a fit for me. So authenticity, it goes a real long way, because if you're not authentic with yourself, one, you're going to be an imposter, and then you don't know how to get out of that because you've lost who you are. So for me, I would just say practice. You may be the smartest person, and if you are the smartest person in the room, that means you need to change your room, um, and really be authentic of who you are. Value where you come from, value how you were raised. I remember in a previous company, I spent time on the East Coast up in New Jersey, New York area. And I grew up in the South. I grew up in Alabama. And I remember a couple of times, somebody saying, like, you're not from here, are you? And I'm like, why? It's like your accent, you talk funny. And the crazy thing about it was the first time it happened to me, it was a Jamaican guy. And I was like, you're talking about my accent and I'm not from here and you're not. But for a while that played on me. So I started trying to change my dialect to not sound Southern or country. And I said, why am I doing that? I mean, United States is a melting pot of cultures. And if I can't be who I am and take pride of where I come from and who my parents are, then what am I doing? And so I started getting it back. So I may say y'all, I may say fixing. Uh, it's not in the dictionary, at least I don't think. I may say ain't every now and then, but that's who I am. It doesn't take away from my work and the accomplishments I've had, but I'm more comfortable now of really recognizing that my diversity and my differences make a difference in this company.
I hope that everybody just takes a moment to digest those gems that have been dropped by everyone right now, because I could tell you that I absolutely did. And I think a root of what everyone just said around practice, trying, making sure that you're not afraid to fail, that follows one of perhaps my favorite quote of all time, which is simply, the greatest failure is the failure to try. Try, don't just try not to fail, fail, learn. Try your best to, for example, bring your authentic self. Try your best when you tell yourself you can't, try to tell yourself that, heck yeah, you can, 100%. You are that person. Try these things, but do not fail to try. And I hope that everybody captures that in different perspectives from what our panelists told me. I know one thing that really struck with me was everybody really bringing their authenticity, not just to this call, but talking about how they do it at work. I certainly do the same thing as well, but it took time. When I bring my little Spanish in there and I say, ya tú sabes, which means you already know, that's a part of who I am. That took time to get to that point. But when I did, and when people not just accepted it, but celebrated that difference of who I am, that's how I knew, oh man, I really should have tackled this imposter syndrome thing a while back, because that's what people wanted in the first place. So we hope that all of you over time continue to get to that point. We're still working on it too, as you can see, but we all get there together, right? Now, there's a great question in the chat, and I know that Genevieve wanted to give a perspective on it, and I want to go ahead and just reread it for everyone's attention. Madison asked a great question. Have you had imposter syndrome and it turned out to be true? If so, how did that affect you going forward? Genevieve, thoughts?
Yeah, and I would invite the rest of the panelists to jump in here too. But I think a big part of imposter syndrome, and by the way, I go to therapy weekly and I talk to my therapist about this from time to time. So it's not just about, talking to my
get off mute. Come on, therapy. Come on, therapy.
Okay.
Can we get a plug for Spring Health?
There we go. Yes. PepsiCo offers services in a program called Spring Health and gives us access to lots of tools that support mental health. So we work for a really great organization. But, Madison, I think it's important. Your receipts are important. So that little list in the back of here's my list of great things that I've done is great to insulate you on a day-to-day, but you should also be having conversations with your managers, your peers, when you do your annual check-in or your mid-year check-ins, really talk about where do I need to stretch? What do I need to learn? And if you're feeling like you're experiencing imposter syndrome, take a check at the end of whatever it is, that meeting. Were you as prepared as your peers? Did you contribute the same amount as your peers? Because I think one thing that we also need to talk about is on the other side of that, on the side of, yes, it could be true that you are not measuring up or you're faking it. But the truth of the matter is that we are not, when I took the senior director role, Maliha, I felt the same exact way. I did everything I can to get in the seat. And then when I got here, I was frozen for a good 3 days. I was like, I don't want to send out an email. I don't want to say anything wrong. They're going to figure out I wasn't the right person. And it was a mess. So I think, on one hand of it, it's got to drive you forward, and you have to have real and honest conversations about whether or not there are places you need to grow. Just because you're in a new position, they don't expect you to know everything. There's got to be room to grow. And I think with our counterparts, sometimes, they say that white men, when they come into positions or they get new positions, they might have 30 or 40% of the skills that are required to do that job. The rest they're going to learn. They're going to learn through mentorship, sponsorship, seminars, whatever learning programs your company offers, but you're going to stretch to get there. So the organization oftentimes is willing to build the person that they need for that role. It doesn't mean that you're perfect for the role. It just means that they see in you the qualities and characteristics that are required to be in that role. And then on the flip side of this, I just want to take the quick opportunity to talk about the fact that sometimes there are triggers that cause people who have imposter syndrome to feel that they are, they're having an episode of imposter syndrome, because there are microaggressions. There are times where you do work and it's uncredited, or, there are tons of instances where we could be made to feel as if we are imposters, but we're really not. So distinguishing and having conversations about what's real and what's not is important. And I invite the opportunity to learn where I am not measuring up. So if I am, purporting to be something or purporting to know something, and it turns out that I don't, I look at that as an opportunity to learn. It might hurt at first, but when I get it, baby, get ready, because I'll be unstoppable. So invite the opportunity to uncover places where you can grow, because if you don't, like Tiana said, be humble, be thirsty to learn more, because once you've stopped learning, that's it. You've just put a cap on your career.
Yeah, and if I can just build on that, like, that's the thing about imposter syndrome, right? It's this idea that you, despite how you got there, deserve to actually be there. And so it's not because somebody validated your or invalidated your journey there. When you're in the room, you're in the room. Like, so it's, in my mind, it's less about like, can that thing win? You're in the room, like you've already placed yourself there. And the only thing that you could do is be kicked out the room because you allow, that not to, you don't work hard enough to do what you need to do, or you give in to some of those things, but you're there. So like, imposter syndrome can't actually win, because it's more of this thing that lives kind of within us. Everybody's got this chance once you're in the room to do the work, to put in the work, to learn, to grow, to perform, to whatever. And in my mind, if it's not about giving in to imposter syndrome and that actually being true, it's more about you just not being able to perform whatever it is that you need to perform at that point. And that's okay. There have been moments in my life where I started on a path and it was like, oh, this path is not for you. That is okay. And I think we have to normalize that, because that's not a result of imposter syndrome winning. That's a result of just not being in the right place at the right time. And we've launched brands that we launched not at the right time. We have done campaigns that were not at the right time. We've launched innovation that hasn't been at the right time. We've had moments so I think we have to reframe it. It's not that imposter syndrome wins unless you allow that to win. It's a thing that wants to feed that fear inside of you that wins. But when you're in the room, you're in the room. So you gotta just do the work. And I think to your point, Mario, on training, yes, there can be reasons why you're not meeting the expectations of the work at that point, right? Like there could be external factors or whatever. But that's the part where you have to keep on being proactive. Every single experience, regardless of if it was peachy and it ended up with sunshines and rainbows flowing out your bank account, or if it ended up with you needing to go find something else, every single experience we have is an opportunity to learn from that and to grow from that and be content with what you experience in that season. Everyone won't be the same. And there are cases where now you know how not to train somebody, or how to not, be helpful for somebody that you're going to lead one day, or how to then influence the agenda in another way, or now how to speak about your own wins and how to build your own narrative and how to support that better. But regardless, it's not failure. It's just the next shift and the next part of the journey. And so I don't think imposter syndrome actually wins. I think we give into that fear, or we learn and we continue to grow and get better and then move through the different seasons of life.
There is a reason that you have been selected for the role, to run the project, for the position that you are on, for being in the room at the table. There is a reason. And usually that reason is your differences. It's your unique perspective. I'll tell you, when I came into Pepsi, I felt this huge burden of, I have to establish credibility. People over here have been here for like 20, 15, 30 years. I'm coming in not just from outside of Pepsi, but from outside the beverages industry. I felt like a total imposter. I don't know the ABCs of the beverage industry, until I realized that unique experience and how the industry that I came from was so focused on quality execution in the trade is exactly my strength that I am bringing in. And overcoming imposter syndrome is that journey from believing that I do not belong because of my differences to I belong because of my differences. I make an impact because of my unique experiences, because of my different perspective. And many times it's difficult for us to see that, and outsiders see it in us as our biggest asset, and we have to turn it to that. Now, when you talk about what happens if you do fail as a result of imposter syndrome, like Tiana said, we got to reframe that. It's not that imposter syndrome wins. It's believing that if I fell short or I failed, it's a learning opportunity, right? Like that's going to make me a better leader. What did I take away from this experience, and what am I going to do to overcome those shortfalls? And in the long run, I win. So it helps.
Love it. Love all of the above. Continuing to soak in this amazing knowledge and perspective from everyone, and we appreciate you for that. Terrence, coming to you here with the next question, and friends, we recognize we're almost at the top of that hour. This is a great and important topic, and we know it's hard to fit it within that 1 hour, but we did want to give you a little bit of context around employee resource groups, and we recognize that a number of you have heard about employee resource groups before, whether you're part of some of our nurture programs here at PepsiCo or otherwise. As a quick summary and refresher, the ERGs at PepsiCo, they really are designed to help our associates find community and acceptance outside of your immediate teams, while also helping associates learn how to be allies with marginalized communities, right? As an example, we have Mosaic that supports our Black associates, and Adelante supporting our Hispanic/Latinx associates, PAN supporting our Pan-Asian associates as well. And it's a great space to find internal community. And these cheerleaders that our panelists are talking about, when we all work together to overcome that imposter syndrome. Terrence, from you, can you share just a bit about your experience getting involved in attending the events and initiatives at ERGs and how they've helped you?
Yeah, I think I'm part of Mosaic, and I think when I really became active in Mosaic, I think that's when my career really started taking a different direction. I've always attended some of the events. It was good, you know, event once a quarter. You go to an event, you say, hey, high five everybody, and you go along your business. But one of the things about imposter syndrome too, that when it kicks in, is the feeling that you're alone or you're by yourself and nobody understands you, and there's no support around you. So I remember one year I said, you know what, I'm gonna start volunteering and try and hold some type of leadership capacity in an ERG for Mosaic. When I started doing that, I expanded not only my network, but also expanded my cheerleading group. I realized that I wasn't the only one going through the things and feeling, you know, at times inadequate or feeling kind of on an island by myself. So it was able for me to open up to people that looked like me, that came from similar backgrounds as me, and really understand that, you know what, everybody goes through this. I'm not the only one. And then just starting to be in more leadership roles with that, you start to meet more people, mentors, people are willing to pour into you, you know, outside of your work. Because, you know, like I said before, if I look at my organization, there's not a lot of African Americans. There's a lot of African Americans in the company. So you don't always get to make those connections, but ERGs is where you can actually make those connections of, hey, I'm talking with somebody in finance or somebody in law and somebody in sales. Regardless of their function, they're having to deal with the same struggles and the path that I'm trying to go down, and they're giving great advice. So I would highly encourage people to join ERGs, because it gets you off of that island of feeling by yourself and surrounds you with a support system that's only positive. Like you talked about the training. All training is not equal. What are trainings that's good for African Americans? What's good for trainings for women of color? What's good? I mean, what's good trainings for LGBTQ or being an ally to these groups? That's where you start to get that information and build that confidence, and knowing that this journey is a journey with people and not by yourself.
Absolutely agree. And I was just typing in the chat, but I will say it out loud to Terrence's point around ERGs and being together, being in the community. The equivalent at student organizations in colleges and universities is that, right? Join the student organizations while you're still in school. And furthermore, join organizations that you may not self-identify with to gain cultural context, really understand for yourselves what it means to be an ally, and simply work together as a community to continue to build upon crushing that imposter syndrome. So that is really what you can do even right now as you go into your fall semester in about a month. That is your call to action of what you can do, boots on the ground as you go back to campus, y'all. So with that, we're gonna do what we call a quick round robin on the final word, final piece of advice, just a few sentences for each of our panelists to really close it out in strong fashion. So Maliha, followed by Genevieve, then Terrence, and then Tiana. Last couple bits of advice that you wanna leave the folks with.
The best version of you is the authentic you. So be yourself and be yourself with pride. And if you do that, imposter syndrome has nothing on you. So just be you and you'll keep on winning out there. And you deserve to be where you are.
Yeah, I love that. So for me, it's just going to be practice controlling that talk track that's happening in your head. If you can't do that, take inventory of the things that you say to yourself on the worst days where you feel it the most, and try to ban those specific phrases. Just control what you're saying. Try to fill your self-talk with positive things and things that uplift you.
For me, I say enjoy the process. It's always good to have a goal, finish line, but if you always focus on the finish line, you can't enjoy the process of getting there, and you miss the small moments and the journey. So enjoy the journey, enjoy the process, enjoy the failures, enjoy the successes, because once you get to the finish line, your work is over, or you need to start a new race. So just enjoy the process and make sure you take time to really, pick up on the now and the future.
And for me, you heard me say it earlier, there is not a single human being on the face of this planet that has the unique combination of experience and family and education and belief systems and all of these amazing things that make you up. Don't you dare deprive the world of who you are. Don't you dare deprive your company of who you are. Don't you dare deprive your community of who you are. Nobody else deserves it. We deserve you. So don't forget that. Hold on to that. Be yourself and show up, but put in the work.
100% agree. And my quick bit, when you get that voice in your head, continuing to ask yourself, do you belong here? Is this where you need to be? The answer is you are damn right. That is you. So tell that to yourself, right? We tell that to y'all because we know that to be true. Tell yourselves that because it is. All right. So with that, I want to thank all of our panelists today with this amazing, passionate, and open conversation around overcoming imposter syndrome. Maliha, Terrence, Tiana, Genevieve, thank you so much for your perspectives and your time. Love all the perspective. And quick plug and thank you to the architect of our session today, Jamie Shum, who really put the band together and brought out these awesome questions for you all. So big kudos to Jamie as well and to everyone involved. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your authenticity, and keep being you. We appreciate you all.
And a round of applause for our host and moderator.
Thank you, Juan.
Thanks, Juan.
Awesome job, Juan.
Thanks, Jamie.
Appreciate you all. Have a good afternoon, everyone. Take care and be yourself. Be authentically you.